So this miniature gets me so excited. I feel like I just want to I want to give birth to a little baby dinosaur. Like he's my little baby dinosaur, and I've just given birth. And oh, you need to eat. Oh, we gotta get the baby some food. Hang on, I get some marshmallows, and then oh, it's too big. It's too. Hang on. I've seen. Oh. I mean, it's not real. It's not, I know it's not a real creature, but it makes me feel like I'm a new, I'm a mommy. That's. Thanks for watching this. Hey everybody, so I've got the Dread Croc here. This is one awesome miniature. It's a two-part miniature, just like every miniature in Dwellings of Eldervale. The Dread Croc is one, including the feet and the rock on the foot, and then this cool sculpted base with the waves. See that? So when you'll get it, you'll take this top piece and glue it into the base. There's 2 pegs on the bottom of each foot. You'll put it in the slot, glue it down. Now I have primed this miniature with a black spray primer. And you can do black, you can do a zenithal, or you can do white. It really doesn't matter. Black usually gives you a more contrasty, dark, sort of moody vibe, and that's what I was going for. So the technique we're going to do here is just layer highlighting, and if you can see these really cool scales here? So we're just going to make them pop out by using some highlighting techniques. And see the scales down here? Yeah, we're going to make both of those pop out. It's going to be really cool. Now the base coat brush that I'm using is again an Army Painter Dungeons & Dragons base coat brush. This one's pretty beat up. See how the point's not pointy anymore? And that's only because I've been using this brush now for probably 3 or 4 months. So it's, eventually they take a beating, and I'm not cleaning it out with Master Soap or anything like that. So they will look like this, but when you add some water and roll it around, it'll form a point. So we're good. So that's the size brush that you want, and let's get started with the base coat. So the first color that I'm going to base coat it is Underdark Indigo. Check that out. See how that color, it's a dark blue, but it's got a little bit of a green to it, and that's really what we're going for. So don't forget to shake your paints, add it to your palette. I've added it to my palette down here. And now we're just going to go ahead and base coat. So I'm going to add a touch of water to my brush. Get some of my paint. I'm going to coat the whole dang thing. Nice, fast, and easy. See that? I'm just coating the whole thing. Now if you had a primer of this color, you can do that as well to save you all the trouble of actually painting. You see how I'm using this primer? Or using this paint here. Now see how it's a little mottled? You're getting a little bit of that color, the black coming through. That's totally fine. Instead of applying more paint, we still want to keep it nice and thin. Too much paint, you're going to obscure detail. So you want to make sure to make the paint nice and thin. See that? Another touch of water. Water is a natural flow improver. It will increase the speed of your base coat, but it also will thin your paint. So too thin and it'll get too watery. Like see how it's a little watery here and the black shining through? That's going to at least need another coat, maybe 2 more coats after that. That's just a standard base coat. So I'm going to finish base coating this, and I'll bring it back and I'll show you when it's finished. Alright, now you can see that my area that I'm going to show you how to paint is pretty much base coated. If it were me, oh wait, it is me. I'm me. I'm me, right? I don't know. Sometimes, it gets confusing, especially when paint's involved. Oh, don't lick your brush. You'll end up like me, and it's probably not a good thing. But anyway, so I'm going to add one more layer once this dries, because you can see right here, you've got some black shining through. Here, a little bit of black shining through. You really want a nice base coat, because we're going to hit it with a wash after this. And that's just going to accentuate where I didn't paint. I'm not painting any of these other areas just for the sake of the video because we're really focusing our technique here. But what I do here, you're going to apply to the rest of the miniature, so don't worry. So I'm going to apply one more coat and I'll bring it back. Alright, now you can see that I've got one more coat on top, and now it's really looking like a firm base coat. Now honestly, you can save yourself a lot of time if you just get a spray primer that is this color. Boom, you spray it, you're done. Alright, we're going to let that dry, and then we're going to hit it with a wash. So come on back. And we're back. Okay, so this is now dry. I use a blow dryer to hasten the process. You don't have to do that. And now we're going to use shadow wash. Shadow wash is basically a black wash. So a lot of different companies make it. I personally really enjoy using this one. So shake this one up. It's very watery, so be careful when you're shaking it. Make sure the top's on. Put it in your palette. Now you want to use a wash brush. A wash brush is maybe just a little bit of a beefier base coat brush, but your base coat brush, which I'm going to use here, will still work, no problem. You're going to apply it. I dip it in my paint here, if you can see. I'll dip it here, and then I will add water to this. So I'm dunking it in my water to make it a little more runny. And then I'm just going to dunk it all over and watch all those cracks come out. See how all the cracks come out? Beautiful contrast. This is, without a doubt, talent in a can. This is instant contrast. Look at that. Now over here it's gotten a little heavy, so all I do is add just a touch of water and it runs right on down. And what I typically do is I'll go wash, water, until I feel like all of the contrast is in. And what this is doing is this is building us a nice base to then build up from. So a wash always will darken the original base coat color at least one shade lower, right? So then when we build back up with highlighting, we'll end up building up and making a lot of contrast here. So there we go. And we're good to go. We gotta let that dry and we'll come on back. So now that the wash is dried, for the most part, you can see that we've got these really nice undertones here. But it still looks kind of mottled, right? So basically what it did is it's like volume adjustment. We kind of turn the volume down on this miniature's color, right? So it's a little bit more muted, a little darker. So rule of thumb, I always go back to my original base coat color if I've done a heavy wash, right? So this is probably a medium wash, but we're still going to use the convention. So always go back to your original base coat color. Now here's the trick. What we're going to do, shake that up, add a little bit more. And again, we're going back to Underdark Indigo. This is the base coat color you started with. Add some into my palette here. Now for this step, it's very important to only get the outer areas and not go near the cracks. So you can watch me do this. So see how I'm going to paint 75% of each scale of my original base coat color. See that? Right. But I'm leaving that crack area dark, and that is creating a shadow. And that shadow, once we build one more highlight layer on top of this, is going to create the 3D effect that you see on a lot of award-winning miniatures. See how you're already starting to get this really nice contrast? It's beautiful. And this is just the original base coat color. You're basically going back to square one. You can use the same brush. And for this particular miniature, it is painstaking, but I paint each individual scale on its own. I'm not dry brushing. That's also a beginner technique. This is just each individual scale I'm doing by hand. And see deep into that crack there? I'm not going to mess with that because that's naturally going to be a shadow. So you can make it easier on yourself by not painting that. So see, check it out. Look at that nice contrast we're building up. And that's just the first layer. So I'm going to come back and I'm going to add the second layer. Alright. So now if you look at the miniature that I completed here, it's kind of got this green teal thing going on, right? So here's where we're going to change it up. There's two paths we can go down. Kind of like the two paths the Hobbit goes down when they want to take the trash out and Mom says that the trash is overdue. You know what I mean? You don't know what I mean. You probably don't have a mom who tells you to get the trash. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to follow one of the two paths. Path 1 is one step up from our original color. Now see, this is ghostly blue. Now check it out. We've got underdark indigo, ghostly blue. See how there's a dramatic difference? This is dark, this is light. This is a highlight to this. This is our base coat, this is highlight. Now what you usually do in a system is you'll do a base coat, a wash. So let me get the wash. Right? So you'll do base coat, wash, then base coat after your wash again, and then a highlight. And sometimes pro painters will go up 2-3 more highlights after this one. But we're just going to stop here. Okay? Now the other path we could go down is we could create this teal effect that would be really cool using Merfolk turquoise. Now this is I want to show you guys because I've got this next step that's really, really neat. So I'm going to shake this up and we're going to go down a path not traveled as often. So like instead of going to Mordor, we're going to go to Hodor. We're going to go to Hodor. It's next door neighbors with Mordor. All right, now here's the cool part. It's exactly the same technique, except you're going to cover, instead of 75% now you're going to cover 50%. So I'm just going to take a little paint, and 50%, and you're always starting the furthest from the crack, right? The crack is your darkest, so whenever you're applying a new highlight, you're going to be the furthest away. So check this out. And you're going to see some instant highlight here. And if you get it into the crack, not a big deal. A lot of beginner painters don't have the can control. So you might get it into the crack. We can easily resolve that. I'm actually messing up. See how I'm getting it in the crack there? I'll show you how to fix that. But look how vibrant this is. This is the 3D effect that all miniature painters achieve. And it's simply due to contrast. A little more paint. And once we start getting into this finer highlights, you might want a smaller brush, a little bit more of a pointy brush. I've been painting for a while, so I can use the same brush for all my layers. But to make it easier on yourself, a finer, more detail-oriented brush will assist you in this process. Now look at that. Look how vibrant that is. Isn't that cool? And I would apply the same technique to these scales as well up here. Now, only for the purposes of this video am I only doing one area, but the same technique is applied to these as well. And look how they pop out like that. That's really cool. So now I'm going to show you how to fix if you've gotten it in the cracks. So take all the paint off, go back to your original color, and you're going to paint it right back into that crack with the original color. whenever you make a mistake, you always go back and redo the whole thing from start to finish. So see, I did the original color. Now what did I do next? I did the wash. So now, once that dries, I'm going to do the wash. And that's our true method to fix mistakes, is you always go back, right? Through the whole process. So if you've done a wash in 3 layers, you're going to do a wash in 3 layers again to go back. For this, see, I've just done my base coat right there in that spot where I went into the crack. And then I'm going to get my shadow wash here. And I'm going to reapply it. Now this time I really just want to hit that wash, that crack. So see how I'm putting it there? Now that's kind of over everything, right? That's too, look how crazy that is. So I'm going to wet my brush, dry it, and then I'm going to remove it with the dry tip of my brush. This is called wicking. See how I'm wicking that out? And once it gets saturated, you dry again. Now you've got a little more wicking. You got more suck in your brush. It's all about the suck of the brush. See that? Boom. It's fixed. It won't be quite as noticeable when it dries. That's just, it's standing out because it's a little bit wet. So cool. So check out those highlights. How cool is that? So that is a very basic base coat highlight to 1 layer. So just to recap, what we did was we base coated it with I don't even know how to read. They feed me these paint labels in a script and with a prompter. So, but it's broken. So it's like, and by they I mean me, because I'm in my own basement. Underpants. Indicative. Anyway, we go here for our base coat, then we go here for our wash, then we go back to here for highlight 1, and then highlight 2 if you're going to go a more conservative approach. But we took the path less trodden, and we used Merfolk turquoise as our highlight color. Now there's one last step that's going to turn this thing into a really cool miniature, and that just has to dry, so I'll bring it right back. So for our last step, what we're going to do is, this just happens to be a secret weapon wash, but you want a nice, vibrant blue wash. It's exactly like the shadow wash. Same consistency, same technique, same everything. We're going to put a little bit in our palette. And now I'm going to wash it all over the highlights that I've done. Now check this out. This is really cool. So what this is going to do is this is going to smooth out my highlights so they don't look as abrupt. And they're going to color change. It's almost like a chameleon. Look at that. Look how incredible that looks. So now we're getting this absolutely vibrant color here. It's beautiful blue. And we're going to paint the water the same color, so it'll look like he's almost flowing into the water. See it bubbled up a little bit? That's easy. You just dry your brush and wick out the bubbles. And I usually, my technique is, I'll dump the wash on, and then I'll do a cleanup step. So now I dry my brush, right? And now I'm cleaning. I'm just wicking out just a little out of each crack so it doesn't pull too much. Once I get saturated again, dry, 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 wick out some more. Right? And this is just cleaning. I call it the dump and clean. You take a dump on the miniature and then you clean it up. Now look at that. Look how cool that looks. And that's it. It's really just that simple. All right. So we finished this highlight here. And I just call this layering with a wash blend. So what we did is we did a base coat. We layered on top of that a wash. And then we layered on top of that the base coat again. Layered one more highlight. And then we wash blended, which is hitting the whole thing with a wash to create this really nice smooth transition, right? So the next step I'm going to show you is how to make this water base look like actual water. So check this out. All right, so for the water, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this frost blue and I'm going to dial it down with black to the point where it's a very dark blue. You almost want it like this midnight blue. So I'll show you the color in just a second after I mix it. Alright, so after I mix it, I've got this very, very dark blue. And I'm just going to coat it over. Now here's the thing, you want it wet. So I'm going to add plenty of water. I'm just going to cover this wave here. Now for this step, you want to keep it wet. So you want to paint quickly. Even if you just do certain areas, it's better to do just a little area before it dries rather than the whole thing and it then dries on you. So I've already got my base coat here. Now while it's wet, what I'm going to do, I'm going to water off my brush, dry it, and I'm going to get a bright blue. See this bright blue? And I'm going to create little streaks. See what I'm doing there? What's going to happen is because it's wet, the water is actually, and I never want to water this. In this stage, you want to take paint directly out of your palette. You don't want to add any water whatsoever. So what I'm doing, and I typically focus on the tops of the crests of waves because that's where the highlights are going to be. So check this out. And now in the flat part, see how there's a flat part right there? See that there? Flat part, you're going to make a squiggle. Just little squiggles. Right? So see how I'm highlighting that? Now what happens with the water is it dissipates all the pigment in the paint. So it actually creates this look of real water. So while that's all wet, I'm going to then add white on top of that. So check this out. Now white is going to be at the very peaks of the crests of waves. So I'm going to add it just, now you want to be very light with your brush. You don't want to overpower this thing. So just a little bit of highlighting on the edges of this brush, on the brush. You know the brush. The brush. That's the brush. See how I'm highlighting the crest of the wave here? Check that out. There it is. Check that out. Once it starts kind of blending in with that blue, it's time to get fresh white. So I go back and get some fresh white. Again, you don't want to add any water. This is straight. See how much I got? Alright, so check that out. That actually looks like a splashing wave, doesn't it? It's really cool. So now that can dry. You can relax. This little area that I completed, I can let that dry while I do another area if you don't feel as confident to do the whole thing while it's wet, really quick. I'm tidying up. I'm adding just a little more personality. Just little squiggles. Just little squiggles. Cool. Now look at that. That looks like a real wave. But we're not quite done yet. I have another really, really cool step after this. Check it out. Alright, and we're back. So now that the water is wet, yeah. Nope. That's me. That's my fault. I messed up. And we're back. So now that the water is dry, now we can apply a gloss coat. Now, Army Painter makes a really cool product called Gloss Varnish. And what it is it's a protectant. It's a very thin little layer of polyurethane. However, when it dries wet, so it actually makes it look like water. So I'm going to take a little bit on my brush. It's a little bit milky. The substance is a little cloudy, right? But when it dries, it's totally clear, so don't freak out. And I'm going to apply it all over the water. See how I'm doing that? The greatest thing is the illusion that painters create. We make things look real when they're not. Now it's going to dry just like that. See how it's glistening? And now you can even add this. Let's say you finish painting the foot. You can add where the foot meets the water. You can paint it. See how I'm covering it there? You can even do the belly if you want. And that's how you do water. Boom. Look at that. Took 5 minutes to just complete this tiny little area, right? So those techniques that you've done here and here, you apply on the whole miniature, it's a done deal. So now we're finished. So what you've seen is you've seen a base coat to highlight with a wash blend in between here. And then you've seen how to create realistic water completed with a gloss varnish on the base. So you have all the tools that you need now to complete this miniature and make it look absolutely jawsome. That was a reference to Lord of the Rings, when the Frodo met a shark person. His head was like the head of a shark, but the body of a person, but the head was like 10 times bigger than the body. It was very disconcerting as a child. You know, just anyway, we're done. So thanks for watching. Hopefully you've learned a lot about how to paint scales and do that cool water effect thing that I just showed you. And thank you, the Army Painter, for providing the paints. And Breaking Games, thank you so much for the Dwellings of Eldervale and your Dread Croc. I'm really excited. It's my baby. It's my little guy. It's Karen. It's not a guy, it's a girl. It's Karen. It's Karen, my Croc. I just crumpled.